Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Andrew here with another OCS video. This one is going to be specifically about academics at OCS. Highly requested based on my last video from the comment sections and from just a couple people reaching out, DMing me and such. So I really wanted to push this content as soon as I could. I hope this answers all you guys' questions. If you have more, you always have the option to, like I said, reach out to me. Leave a comment, DM me. I always answer, and I want to help you guys as much as I can. So, again, leave. Psych. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. Helps me grow the channel, push out information. Now let's get into it. All the knowledge you need to succeed at OCS from an academic standpoint. All right. So it has, first and foremost, a test matrix in it, which is kind of like a syllabus. What that does is it outlines every test in terms of what's going to be on the test and then how many tests there are as a whole. All right. So I could be wrong in this, but I believe it's 7 tests for the OCC candidates. So that means 7 tests for those who are going for 10 full weeks to OCS. And then it's 4 tests for people who are going to OCS 2 times. So if you're doing juniors and seniors, it's 4 tests for each increment. All right. So in terms of the topics that are covered in this book, there's a lot, right? So, and I'm not necessarily going to provide like a full-on list of every topic that's in the book, but I'll tell you guys that some of the topics include like history, uniform policy, close order drill, fire team tactics, hand and arm signals, maintenance and parts of an M16. So a pretty wide range. And before you guys like flip out and say like, oh crap, like I'm screwed, that's a lot, like that's a lot of information to know, and there's more, relax. This information is all introductory. All right, so anything that they cover is really only scratching the surface as to the information as a whole. All right, I don't want to say it's vague information, but their expectation is not that you become like Marine Corps history master or something. Like they don't expect you to be like a historian by the time you leave. They expect you to understand the big picture of each topic and to understand specific finite details that they deem are important. Like for example, history is very important to the Marine Corps because it's so rooted in history and tradition. So they will expect some specific dates, some specific people, notable people to to be memorized. But as a whole, relaxed. It's you take every test at a time, one at a time. So if there's a bunch of topics on one test, focus on those, bang that out. Test number 2, test number 3, etc. So when you're at OCS, the ways in which they get this information to you, other than a textbook, is you'll attend classes. All right. So classes are conducted throughout the day on most days. All right. You'll go to an auditorium. It's called Yekel Hall, and you'll have a teacher who will present a lovely PowerPoint, which will be pretty boring, although some of the teachers there are actually pretty good about keeping you engaged. It's important that you pay attention during those classes, working hard to stay awake, which is my problem. I had a tough time staying awake. So staying awake in those classes, staying alert, writing notes, highlighting your textbook, like certain parts or sections of your textbook, making sure that you are staying on top of it, because they'll cover anything that's in the textbook, but for the most part, when they make the PowerPoint, they make it and gear it towards the specific information you need to know for the test. Meaning that if you pay attention, you'll know how to condense the section so that you can focus only on what'll be on the test and kind of, push off to the side the stuff that won't be on the test. So I don't want to say don't learn the other information, but I think you kind of get where I'm going with that. In terms of like I said, the information, it's nothing that's not in the textbook, which means that technically if you didn't pay attention in class, you would still be fine. All right. I'm not saying do that, but my point is that if you were to miss something for whatever reason, you wouldn't be in big trouble. Now, in addition to classes, you'll be giving a designated study time, and then you can also study after lights, so after everybody goes to bed. So the designated study time, you usually get about 1 hour most days, not all days, and it really depends on your schedule, whether or not you get it, but especially leading up to the test, so a couple days before the test, you'll get a fair amount of days in which you'll have a 1 hour study block, or let's say one day where maybe you have 2 1 hour study blocks. Again, depends on the schedule, right? Designated study time, though, you can only study. You can't write letters. You can't, kick back, relax, hang out, have a good time. You can only study, which means use the time, right? If you just pay attention in class, you could probably pass the tests, no problem. If you want to do better, you study, and you have nothing else better to do during that time because you literally can't do anything. So when you get study time, you crack open your book, make flashcards, reread the section, highlight more crap, decipher your notes from class. Do all those things to enable yourself to do well on the tests, all right? In addition to that, you do have the opportunity to study after lights. Do I recommend this? Only if you need it. I'll preface it by saying that it's not essential, okay? You don't need to, or you have plenty of time to study other than studying after lights. And sleep is essential. Like, I'm a firm believer in that. So I don't think that you sacrifice all your sleep time to study for something that, might only make a difference of 1 or 2 questions, to be totally honest. If you pay attention in class and you use your study time, you'll be good to go. Now, in terms of, backtracking a little bit on those classes, your classes, if you have, let's say, exam 1 and it's, there's 4 different sections that it says will be on that exam, you'll have 1 class for each section, and then after you've had all the classes for everything that's going to be on that test, you might have a day or 2 in between, maybe more, and then you'll have the test. Again, which means that you'll be given all the information, delivered and presented all the information. You'll have designated study time, and again, the opportunity to study after lights, so you have ample time to study. Now, in terms of the exam itself, which is what you guys are probably after, the information that you want. So, I'll start off by saying every exam is multiple choice. So that means that there's really not a lot of, I don't want to say not a lot of critical thinking involved, but it's a lot of memorization more so than anything, which, knowing the information, how you know it is relative. Knowing the information is important, right? And being able to regurgitate it is important, but you will have the structure of, or the assistance of, answer choice A, B, C, or D. So, meaning that if you understand the information, you can usually piece together the specific answer, even if you don't know the answer. So, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But so basically when you get there, you'll see, you'll be given a Scantron. So just like any school test, right? You'll be given a Scantron. So they're all, like I said, they're all multiple choice. You'll be given a test booklet. It's just like a packet of a bunch of different questions. Each test is usually between 40 to 60 questions, right? Some more, some less, really depends. But as a whole, assumed to be about in the 40 to 60 range. The questions themselves, I felt that they were very direct, and they're not tricky or there to slip you up. The only ones that may kind of slip you up are maybe some of the history questions. So, which would make sense, right? They ask about a specific date, whatever. Let's say birth, or not birthplace of the Marine Corps, birthday of the Marine Corps, right? Birthday of the Marine Corps, is it, November 10th, 1775, November 10th, 1776, November 10th, 1786 or something, right? And then whatever, all the above or none of the above or something. That wouldn't make sense, all the above. None of the above. You obviously could be slipped up by that just by simple, wordplay if you're not paying attention, even if you know the answer. So my point in that is yeah, there are some that could slip you up indirectly, like with the dates, and they'll put them in to kind of confuse you. But as a whole, if you know the information, it's easy. All right. So to give you guys some nitty gritty, juicy information as to how you can prep, which I think is really what you guys want to know is there anything I can start doing right now to get ahead in these tests? Maybe to, a little bit of information that I can study right now, so that when I get there, I'll have a bit of an easier time. So I'm not going to obviously, send out a PDF of the book. I don't even have a PDF of the book. But I will give you guys some basic information that I think that if you had and you knew before going there, that you'd have a leg up. All right. And I want to say this too, is that this information, just because, it's being tested at OCS doesn't mean it isn't important after OCS. It's important that you know this stuff regardless, because especially when you get into the fleet, knowing history of the Marine Corps is essential, not just because you had to get tested on it at OCS, but because the Marine Corps is, like I said, rooted in tradition and history. And, sometimes at one part of one of the exams, you'll be tested on like uniform policy or grooming standards. Well, let's say you're a male and you don't know the grooming standards of the females. It's going to be tough for you to lead female Marines if you don't know their standards, right? So as an officer, it's essential that you know that information. And right, even with the uniform policy, right, you want to be able to enforce to your people the uniform policy, and also want to make sure that you look the part. If you don't know it, you may look all out of whack, and then you're only going to lose respect from your people. So just a disclaimer, but keep that in mind. All right, it is important. So the information that I recommend that you guys look into would be, first and foremost, history, right? History of the Marine Corps from the very beginning, from Tun Tavern, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, all the way up until, present day Marine Corps, right? Now, let me be a bit more specific with that, all right? So understanding the story of how the Marine Corps was formed, all right? Understanding, obviously, the dates, locations, and some of the prominent figures that were incorporated with the inception of the Marine Corps. And then from then and everything since, basically every battle, every engagement, every conflict we've been involved in, as well as some of the notable heroes and heroic actions of both enlisted and officer personnel. So, think notable commandants, Medal of Honor recipients. Some notable quotes would be good too. Sometimes they'll ask, who said this quote, and then as well as locations and chronological order of battles that the Marine Corps was involved in. So understanding the context of that will help you basically piece together everything with it. So I would read, a book or books on the history of the Marine Corps, and as a whole, I would just, regularly read different books on it, stories that cover it, or, even just kind of, have flashcards to slowly introduce yourself to the material. Because if you get here and you have like a strong history and knowledge of the Marine Corps, I think it'll actually help you in other aspects, because in large part, history has to do with everything else, every other section. So I do think that knowing that information will help. It's also like the hardest section or sections on these tests. So you won't have one test that's like straight history. You'll have sections of history that are on each test. So every test will probably ask a couple history questions for the most part. So I'd recommend, like I said, looking at the history as a whole. Everything I just said, I would look into that. And I know that's a lot of information, but it's going to be tested. All right. Another thing I would recommend, just loosely, because you're not expected to know the exact standards of this, but I would look into the parts of an M16 and then how to disassemble and reassemble an M16. This is important because you'll get a rifle at OCS, so you'll be tested on these things, but you'll also get the rifle, and if and be expected to take it apart and clean it and such. If you have prior knowledge of that before you even get there, you'll be way ahead of the game, and I think that that's important. I think that that's like essential, and as a whole, a leg up in any area is pretty cool. Now, another thing I would look at would be fire team tactics. So I think you could probably just look up fire team tactics online, and I think that something good would come up to basically explain to you. I wouldn't look into that too much, but that's just something I would at least like introduce yourself to. I would introduce yourself to as well some hand and arm signals. Again, loose. Don't expect to know every single one. I have it memorized, but the more you know, the better. Fire team formations and squad formations are also important, but not essential. For the exam portion, you will have to learn these, but they're not hard to learn, and you can learn them at OCS. Other than that, what I would look into in terms of memorization, I would memorize the 11 general orders. I would memorize the Marine Corps leadership traits and then the Marine Corps leadership principles. These are all things that you will at some point be tested on, but you'll be expected to know them, especially for the general orders for watch. So when you're on fire watch, you could be asked these at any time. If you don't know them, you're going to get reamed out. You probably get assigned an essay. Knowing the leadership traits, you will get tested on these. Principles, same thing, you'll get tested on them. Now, lastly, this is actually probably the most important thing that I recommend that you get exposure to before you come to OCS is 5-paragraph order. So if you don't know what that is, go on YouTube and check up 5-paragraph order, or even 5-paragraph order, Marine Corps, or whatever it is. Go on YouTube, you'll see, a bunch of, tutorial introductory videos that talk about what 5-paragraph order is and how to use it. So just to give you a quick little, contextual, informational type little, intro here. 5-paragraph order is basically a format that you deliver instructions to your people, so the people that you're leading at the time. So why I say it's important to, to get introduced, but also to get some, basic exposure to it, is because it's kind of complicated. It's not something that you can just unless you're a naturally gifted, learner or whatever, it's something that you really need to practice to master. So I'd recommend, like I said, go online, check up, or go on YouTube, check up a tutorial. They'll explain to you what it is, what each section means, and then how to apply it. This will be something that you'll be tested on. So one exam is specifically 5-paragraph order. That's the whole exam. And then it's also something that you'll use in your leadership evaluations. So SULI 1, 2, and 3. That's small unit leadership evaluations. You will be forced to use the 5-paragraph order to deliver your instructions. So please look into that before you get there. I didn't. I was able to learn it on the go, but had I had the prior knowledge, it would have really, really helped me. All right, guys, so that concludes the video today. I appreciate you guys tuning in, always supporting the channel. I've gotten a lot of support actually lately based on my last video, and I know you guys want more information, and I want to push that out to you and give you as much as you need, as much as you can get in order to prep yourself for Officer Candidate School, whether you're going in a month or whether you're going in 3 months, 6 months, a flipping year. All right. So as always, feel free to reach out to me in the comments or my social media with any questions or video requests. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. And other than that, I will see you guys in the next video. Take care and happy Thanksgiving.